Abortion. For some, this word evokes feelings of empowerment, relief, or freedom. But for others, this subject may give rise to feelings of anger, shock, or shame. Abortion rhetoric is polarizing and is a hot topic for political, social, and religious debate. Abortion is now decriminalised in all Australian states except for South Australia. In spite of this, there is a shame stigma that encircles the topic, and we see this particularly in Christian circles, where pro-choice views are highly controversial and often divisive. And this leads me to wonder, how are women, who are ultimately at the centre of this debate, impacted? The last nationwide study concluded in 2003 and revealed that 80,000 abortions were performed annually in Australia. Now, currently, there's limited data to show exact numbers of abortion because there's no mandatory national reporting or data collecting methods. South Australia and Western Australia are the only states that provide this information to the public. In 2017, there were 4,349 pregnancy terminations in South Australia. This equates to 13.2 pregnancy terminations per 1,000 pregnancies. And since 1999, there's been a steady decline in the rate of abortions. In Western Australia, in 2015, there were 8,176 abortions. That is 15 terminations per every 1,000 pregnancies. And this again, the data shows a steady decline since 1999. Because of the lack of nationwide reporting, the only way to really catch a glimpse of true and current statistics on abortion in Australia is to look at the raw Medicare item data. Medicare item 35643 is evacuation of the contents of the gravid uterus by curettage or suction curettage, and this is a first trimester surgical abortion. In the 2019 to 2020 financial year, there were 38,252 claims made in Australia for this item, and this would suggest that there were nearly 40,000 abortions, first trimester abortions, performed in Australia. This data, however, is limited in that it does not include surgical abortions performed on public patients in public hospitals, and it also doesn't include second and third trimester abortions. The real figure is inferred to be much higher. Now, international studies have revealed that women aspiring to be employed full-time or self-employed or seeking further education are more likely to terminate than other women. And women are also more likely to terminate a pregnancy if they're exposed to partner violence or an increase in alcohol or illicit drug consumption. Kirkman and colleagues performed a study on women and sought to understand why they chose to have an abortion. Now, the study revealed that all women experience difficulty in reaching a decision about whether or not to have an abortion. One woman said, quote, "I didn't even tell my family or my friends because I'm scared that they're going to look down on me for it because it's perceived to be such a bad thing." Now, other women in this study were concerned that they'd be perceived to be selfish, and Kirkman noted, quote, "Whether or not women accurately perceived abortion discourses and their ramifications, it was evident that they were influenced by their perceptions," end quote. Now, because of the nature of the topic and the polarized views, many women resort to facing the decision and the experience alone. 2 studies reveal corroborating evidence that women who undergo abortions experience an increase in mental health problems when compared to women who have not had experience with abortion. In the Christian community, abortion is widely believed to be an atrocity and an act that directly defies God. Christians use biblical passages to support these views in the debate because the Bible is believed to be a source of authority, and the Bible places value on every human life. In Psalm 139, the writer communicates the notion that life begins at conception. Quote, "For you created my innermost being, and you knit me together in my mother's womb. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. end quote. In the Ten Commandments, God instructs his people not to murder, and because Christians believe life is formed at conception, the act of abortion is seen as murderous. And finally, in Proverbs 6, the writer lists, quote, hands that shed innocent blood, end quote, among things that God hates. This type of rhetoric has been weaponized by pro-life advocates in their fight against abortion. But at what cost? At what cost if the women forced to make these difficult decisions are experiencing shame, loneliness, and increased mental health problems? In Kirkman's study, religious doctrine and its outworking were revealed to be one of the significant difficulties women experience when considering abortion. One woman said she thought her religious father would disown her if he knew she had had an abortion. This feeling is shared by many religious women or women from religious backgrounds. Susan Chorley was pastoring a church and had a 2-year-old son when she unexpectedly fell pregnant. In an interview, she expresses that she wanted to have the child, but the timing just wasn't right for her family. Let's hear her as she shares her story.
I didn't feel that I could tell anyone about what was going on. I prayed a lot, tried to ask God to be with me, to let me know I was going to be okay, take care of this life that I couldn't bring into my life. I definitely feel a lot of fear about being thrown out of the church or being told I can't receive, acceptance or forgiveness on my own terms.
While Susan's experience was within the American Christian context, similar stories are shared by Australian women. Michael Page is the senior minister at St. Barnabas Broadway in Sydney and speaks about his concern that no one in his congregation has ever approached him about the topic of abortion. He believes this is linked to a culture of shame, and he says, quote, what could be more Christian than having unexpectedly fallen pregnant, a woman and her partner turn to God and find forgiveness and turn to their church community, encountering love and inclusion and support. However, this is not the way many women experience the church, end quote. Abortion remains a topic under-discussed in the Christian context, and as a result, shame, isolation, and loneliness is the narrative of many Australian Christian women. In The Slap, Anouk finds herself unintentionally pregnant at 43 years of age to a boyfriend who is much younger than she is. And although she was raised religious, Anouk no longer ascribes to these beliefs. At the beginning of her chapter, the reader is under the impression that Anouk has an intuitive feeling that she might be pregnant, but she demonstrates apathy towards this realization. When out with Aisha and Rosie, she continues to drink after making a doctor's appointment regarding the pregnancy. Eventually, she becomes drunk and she enjoys a cigarette. Upon leaving the doctor's appointment later in her story, Anouk jumps into a taxi and is evidently struggling with the abortion decision. She feels, quote, as if she is floating, incapable of a decision, end quote. While mulling, she lashes out at the taxi driver, accusing him of thinking ill of her and presuming to know her and her story. Kirkman identifies society as a whole as a contributor to women experiencing difficulty when considering an abortion. Kirkman states, quote, society can make abortion difficult because of the perceived discourses about abortion and women who have them. The social stigma is represented in Anouk's interaction with the taxi driver. She leaps to a conclusion based on a societal narrative, and because of this story, she incorrectly assumes a position as a subject of his judgment. This is confirmed in Anouk's reflection. Quote, she flinched as she recalled her churlish behavior with the young taxi driver that afternoon. It was not his difference that annoyed her, his accent, his beard, his unforgiving God. It was not that at all. What had shamed her was that he was not at all different. She had assumed he spoke for all the world. End quote. This is further seen in Anouk's desire to hide her pregnancy from Aisha and Rosie, Aisha of whom is one of her closest friends. Teolka's work contains vivid descriptions of Anouk's relationship with Reese and draws attention to the realities of confronting an unplanned pregnancy. In an interview, Teolka's revealed that he addresses politically and socially difficult topics to, quote, liberate people from shame, end quote. It can therefore be inferred that the author aimed to draw attention to the oftentimes taboo topic of abortion within the Australian context in order to highlight the reasons why women choose abortion in the hope of minimizing societal shame. Through looking at the impact of abortion in the Christian context and Anouk in the slap, we can see that there are two significant implications for women: shame associated with religious judgment and shame associated with societal judgment. In this broader discussion, we need to remember the impact on the individual. And no matter what our personal views, our goal should always be to approach the conversation with empathy and with grace.